So now the entire theme of this workshop is how you can set your goals for the first quarter of the year or any quarter whatsoever. Now, this is a little
Sorry.
counterintuitive way of setting goals, and it may come as kind of a shock to most of you guys because it's not the typical goal setting that we do, which is sort of like thinking about, hey, what do we want to accomplish? What are our dreams? And working towards that. Instead, this is kind of taking what I call an inverted approach. So, this is going to be what I call the problem first goal setting. And it's very different, but it helps you create goals that are more simple, realistic, attainable, and what you need to work on like first, immediately. Okay. So, what I want to talk about like is the typical goal setting that we do, right? Why that doesn't work. Because usually we're setting goals and thinking about the dreams and aspirations that we have, right? And if I give you an example, it could be that, hey, 5 years from now, I want to be a luxury wedding photographer and I'm charging, let's say, $10,000 per wedding, jet setting across the entire globe, shooting in beautiful destinations. But that's a dream far, far away. What do we need to do right now, today, in reality, to actually start making progress towards that? And you can take any goal and think about it like that. Of course, the dream is so far away, and we are here in our current state, in our current situation. And when we often, start thinking about goals, it's kind of influenced by like our ego, our society, and what we think is cool at what we need to do. And often, like the list of things that we want to accomplish and do becomes so bloated. And that causes a huge problem. It's like, okay, I have a million things I want to work on. I don't know when I should do this. What's really important? So that's why typically the goal setting that we do doesn't work. So now this is why I want to talk about what I call the problem first goal setting. And this is something that I use and I find it really beneficial. And I use it at Rapid Bookings. And this is what I call the simplest, most reasonable way to identify and work on most relevant and necessary things. So, guys, um, feel free to kind of unmute yourself, give me some feedback if like so far if everything is making sense. I don't want to just be talking to myself, because if something is not clear, I want to make sure you guys understand before we move on to the action item. Okay,
Right.
cool. So in the Zoom chat, there should be a link to a Google Doc, and I want you guys to open that up. Now, there's a few steps to actually doing this, right? First thing I want to have you guys do is make a copy of this Google Doc. So we're going to actually work on some goals, and I'm going to share a screen so we can work together on this. All right. So we're actually going to work on two areas of goals, right? We're going to work on business and personal. So on this spreadsheet, you're going to see there's a section over here for business, and there's an area over here for your personal life. Now, what I want you guys to do is let's take 3 minutes or so to write down as many problems as you can think of. Now, obviously, you don't have to go ahead and like create problems, but just whatever comes to your head, start typing it down. And I want you guys to use it in the format, which is I am not or I do not have. So an example could be I am not getting paid on time by my clients. I do not have any sales follow ups. Whatever it might be, right? I want you guys to use it in that format. For a personal life, could be I am not consistent with my fitness. And you guys should all have a doc on your computer. So let's just take a few minutes and fill that out. So then now that we have this, you can all see my screen. Just create a section over here. Just call it flip side, right? And then we're going to start a bullet list of writing the problems that we have and do it for every one of them. okay, which is I am getting paid on time by my clients. And basically write the exact opposite of the problems and write it just in the exact format, which is I am or I have. So it should take you just a few seconds for you to take all of the things that are the problems or the negatives in your business, in your personal life, and let's just reshape it into a positive. And this is what I call an inverted state. So once you do that, right, if you look at it and imagine like the current situation that's going on in your business, in your personal life, you've got these problems. What would it feel like and your life and business look like if you actually solved them? If all of those negatives were no longer in your life and now it was actually a positive. So, for example, I am not getting paid on time by my clients. And instead, now it is I am getting paid on time by my clients, right? For my personal life, it could be I'm not consistent with my fitness, but I am now consistent, right? So think about it for a second. Would that statement, like, does it make you feel happier? Like, okay, I'm getting closer. So think about it. And you might have a list. I'm only giving you a quick example of like two things. On your list, you might have like 5, 6, 10, 20 different things. Now imagine what would your life really look like if in one quarter you took all those negative things and now you turned it into a positive. So obviously now you might have a ton of things. So we have to kind of pick and choose what we want to prioritize and which ones are the most important. So basically, take your list of things that you have, and we're going to be over here in step number 4. So we're just going to rearrange and reshuffle things and prioritize it in terms of like, okay, this is the most important to me. So you can just quickly do it like that. You could just copy paste it and move things to the top. And hey, Satesh. Hey, Gerardo. Welcome. Hope you guys are catching on. If you want me to kind of walk through some things so you guys are following along, just let me know. Feel free to just unmute yourself. And then the link to this worksheet is in the chat. I'll paste it there again in case you missed the chat. All right. So I'm going to move along. So, Gerardo, take your time, keep writing it, and I'm going to give some more instructions so Jen and Malia can kind of keep moving forward. So did we rearrange them, guys? Give me a thumbs up if we kind of rearrange those. Okay, cool. So now that we rearranged that, we want to figure out the top 3 to focus on. Obviously, we might have like 6, 10, 12 different things. It's not reasonable for us to try to do all of them at the same time. Yes, our quarter is pretty long, it's 12 weeks, 3 months. But still, if we just pick up the top three things that would actually make us happy. So after we do that, what we want to do is step number 6, which is we want to write down kind of measurable sub goals to track progress under each inversion. So I'm going to do it first so you guys kind of understand. So I am getting paid on time by my clients. So what would need to happen for me to actually see that? So first of all, I communicate clearly on the sales call that called my payment terms. Okay. I have it written and signed in my contract. I have automatic card processing system, not waiting on invoice. So pretty much if I have these kind of sub things, then I know if those 3 happen, that means I am getting paid on time by my clients. Does that make sense, guys? So do the same thing for each of your kind of flip sides.
Personals can be out of the business, right? Like me
Mm-hmm.
as a person. Okay.
And like usually what I see is like if you cannot accomplish a lot of your business goals, oftentimes it's because you're distracted in your personal life and it's creeping in and spilling into your business, and that's causing you to lose focus or energy or motivation. So this approach, like if you take this problems first approach, like makes you focus on the nagging problems that you have right now. Oftentimes we know like we need to fix something, but we're like, okay, it's not that big of a deal, let me avoid it. But then what happens is now it's distracting you from actually going towards that dream that you have of having that successful business, because in your current reality you're just bogged down by so many different things that you don't even know what you should focus on. So this is where this problems first goal setting really comes from. And this is a very tech company approach to actually setting goals. Like I sat down with Christina and I said, "Oh, what problems do you see at Rapid Bookings?" And literally, we just took an hour to write down like every single problem that we could think of. And then out of that, like we use that exact same exercise that we're teaching you to create like our quarterly initiatives. So once we actually write down the sub goals, we can now start creating kind of like action steps to get towards that sub goal, right? So first, I'll share mine. So, for example, I wrote down like some of my sub goals, which was over here, right? Let's say I have a lot of sales follow up. So, what needs to happen, which is an automated email sequence. So, right away, that's an action item that I need to work on. I don't have an automated email sequence. And then schedule a time on my calendar to text my couples. So now I need to start making that a practice where after every call, maybe I set a reminder like for 2 days later, okay, I'm going to text and check up with them. Then I also want to have a follow up script. So I'm not like rambling and being like, oh, I don't know what to say to them. Instead, I'm feeling really confident that, okay, when I call them up, I know exactly what to say, what the process is. So, like, are we understanding like how now we got the problem, then we got kind of like, okay, what would it look like if we didn't have that problem? And then what things do we need to do to make sure we have our desired outcome? And like the same thing that I put on my personal life, so which was like I'm consistent with my fitness, which is I work out 5 times per week. So I know that's progress. Like if I work out 5 times per week, like if I check it off on my calendar, okay, I'm making progress. But what needs to happen also is like I need to have a fitness routine and schedule, because the current reason may be, okay, I'm going to the gym, but I don't know what to do. So if I have a schedule and a routine, makes life easier. And then I also want to make sure I get meal boxes delivered to my home. So that's also an action item. So it's like when you start taking actions on these small little things that you didn't even think of, hitting your goal becomes pretty much a natural byproduct. Like it's almost impossible for you to not accomplish that goal if you're working on those small action items, the sub steps, really. And I know like this is like a very weird way of setting goals. This is not what we do traditionally, because usually our goals are like, this year I'm going to earn $80,000, or this year I'm going to earn $150,000, whatever, right? Or this year I'm going to be my fittest best self. But like, how do we actually get there? And usually we don't. And there's just this big divide between where we are and where we want to go. But if we start with the problems right away, it's like, okay, this is the next thing that I need to do, because if I fix this, I'm getting a little bit closer to kind of just being happier.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to make sure you're doing the flip side, because once you start to see a problem as a positive, it's a lot easier to now figure out, okay, now that this is a positive in my life, what are all the things that are happening also positively for me to reach that goal? So if you're, because when you're saying, I am not closing my sales calls, and then you say flip side, now your mind is thinking, I am closing all my sales calls at 30% or whatever. If you want to put a tangible to it, what would need to happen in order for that to become a reality? So like you said, maybe you're really good at objection handling. Maybe you're really good at whatever it is that you need to be working on personally, because everyone's going to be obviously different. Maybe it's I practice my sales consultations every week with my wife. Like those are action steps that are helping you get towards that new state of the inversion of having the problem fixed.
And you could even use this for something very simple that you could understand. It was like, I am not good at taking portraits, like for example, right? And the flip side would be, I am good at taking portraits. And what would that look like? I practice photography every other day with my friends and models in the local area. I understand lighting and composition very well. I read books on photography and I've watched a ton of courses on photography. So like if you do certain things like that, it's like just natural that you're going to get good at photography, right? So same thing with your problems when you flip it and then now you break it out into little things that you need to do. It's like, hey, right away you're going to accomplish that. So once we do that, and then now we kind of wrote down the sub steps or the action items, what I want you guys to do is again put in a little section that says action plan. And you see, just start copying things from here. So I already did it over here, which is rewrite my sales script to state this after accepting payment, state terms, have my lawyer create a new contract with payment terms, start using Stripe. So now we're actually starting to gather this written action plan, things that we need to work on. And what I would want you guys to do also is open up your personal calendar and then look at like, okay, when do you have free time, and start jotting it down. Like, okay, for example, rewrite. I would do it like this. Like, okay, this one I'm going to work on tomorrow. And then this one, like Monday. And start plotting it out with a reasonable schedule. Like, okay, when am I going to actually work on this thing? And when you start doing that, now all of a sudden you've got this action plan. And honestly, it's like a lot of the problems that you wrote down, it's not going to even take you a quarter to really fix. Sure, some things can be like long term, right? It could be like, I'm going to hit 6 figures. It's sure it may not happen in 1 quarter, but we're making progress towards that goal by breaking down the things that needs to happen. Like, for example, it could be like, setting up the Stripe, having the lawyer create a contract. But when you think of the goal, oh, I'm going to hit 6 figures, you don't naturally think that I need to do these 3 things. So really, when you do this exercise, it's like we started off with a problem, and then we created the flip side. And out of that, now we have this beautiful action plan that we can now map out on our calendar and start working towards. And ideally, what I'd love for you guys to do is not take an entire quarter if it doesn't need to be, and instead try to do it in a month. And the next month, think about, okay, what else is it there that I need to work on? And keep doing this until you're like, you know what, there are nothing to really solve. And, life is happiness at this point, because now I can focus on what's really important and keep working on those things. Like in business, the only 3 things, it's generating leads, turning them to clients, and making sure your clients are happy. Did it at least make sense to you guys where you got a valuable action item or action plan out of it? Or did we lose you in the process?
Yeah, it's very valuable. I'm like writing right now.
Okay,
So it's definitely helping out.
cool. Because this is something that I do intuitively, and not a lot of people like do it, because it's like a very weird way of coming up with the action plan. So I just wanted to make sure it made sense to you all.
It's so helpful because I just feel so scattered and all over the place all the time. So this is just like a great, very linear way of putting on paper and being able to stay focused. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Like a lot of the times, even me, like when I'm thinking about my business goals, like I think about like big, grandiose things. And a lot of the times I'm adding things to the plate which just sound cool or look cool. And it's like not really necessary. Because anybody talks about like, hey, what's your dream? What's your goal? You want to like add as much to your plate as possible because that's what makes the dream like big. But when you start with the question like, hey, what's my immediate problems? All of a sudden, only the things that matter come up on the list. And that's the beauty of it.